Well, good morning. I definitely like to welcome everyone to the workshop on resume writing and virtual interviewing skills. This workshop is being hosted by Stratus, SMS, and Heptagon IT. My name is Daryl Jones. I'm the Unified Communications Director for Heptagon. This workshop is geared towards building tips for building a resume to help you stand out amongst other candidates, but then also help you hopefully land interviews and and set yourself up for success during the interview process. We don't have a lot of time, so we'll definitely get right to it. I'd like to introduce our first team, which is covering the resume writing portion. Please give your attention to Ms. Karen Brown. She's a deputy manager for SMS, deputy program manager, I'm sorry, for SMS. Jordan King, who's a project coordinator for VAE. Melody Smith, who's a program manager for SMS. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. As Mr. Jones said, I'm Karen Brown, and I want to share with you a little about resumes. A resume is a document created and used by a person to present their background, skills, and accomplishments. Resumes can be used for a variety of reasons, but most often they are used to secure an interview. Notice I said to secure an interview, not a job. Your resume helps employers make hiring decisions and help you to get that first initial interview. That's why it matters how you introduce yourself for the first time on paper. Your resume is an important tool that you'll use throughout your life and probably your career. To help you create a resume, we need to kind of talk about what a resume is not. Number one, it is not your autobiography. No, it's not your entire life story. Number two, it's not a list of your job descriptions and responsibilities. No, you are not making a record of the things that you were supposed to do during your various roles without including how you went about fulfilling those responsibilities or what results you achieved. This is the most common mistakes that most people make on their resume. Number three, your resume is not your aspirations. It won't impress the reader to know that they hold the key to the job of your dreams. However, you should be impressing them to show them how and why you are the candidate of their dreams. And number four, a resume is not an employment application. A resume is not a legal document. However, an employment application is. Your resume is a short introduction of who you are professionally, a summary of your relevant employment experience and your related success, an overview of your career progression, hopefully the very beginning to a working relationship, so it should be factual. Employers use resumes to get readers to get a deeper understanding of a candidate's skills, strengths, and experience. Your resume should reflect achievements, awards, education, experience, and any other outstanding accomplishments that align with your career paths and your goals. Be honest in your information that you add on your resume. Remember, although the resume is not a legal document, it is the first point of contact with the employer, and it sets the tone for following steps that can lead to the first interview, the second interview, pre-screening, and getting hired for the job.
Hello, this is Jordan, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the do's and don'ts of resume writing. Instead of using an objective, use a summary. Why? Because a summary statement better represents who you are, what you've accomplished, and how you can benefit the prospective employer if you're hired. Resume number one lacks proper keywords needed to get past an applicant tracking system, sometimes referred to as an ATS. Most companies use an ATS to automatically screen your resume by searching for keywords that relate to the position or industry. Resume number one also has a spelling error. Grammatical errors are usually the easiest to point out and the quickest way for a potential employer to discard your resume. Make sure your design is simple and to the point without unnecessary spacing, fancy fonts, and/or colors. And here's a key one: be honest. As a high school student, you may not have had what you consider a real job before, but are you involved in your community, any school organizations? List your titles of all of the relevant skills and work experience that you've accomplished within those roles. For example, if you're the SGA president, you would have your job title as Student Government Associate President, just as this person has software developer. And instead of having the college or the name of the company, you would put your high school name and the dates for which you had that role. List of accomplishments under that role could be you executed the provisions of the SGA Constitution. Another one would be you increased the activities offered to the community and student body. Or you collaborated with on-campus organizations to coordinate advertisements and promotions for upcoming activities. All of these items that you did while SGA president are now contributing to what employers are looking for when they want to hire potential employees.
Hi, I'm Melody Smith, and to basically sum up what a resume is and what should be on it, I need you to understand that the purpose of your resume is to move it along from being scanned by a recruiter, being actually read, and then being selected for an interview. In order to get to that place, you have to build your resume or construct it. And the building blocks you will use, as Ms. King just told you, is your activities that relate to the job that you're applying for. Now, if you have never held a job or you don't have a job right now, the best place to find those building blocks is what you're doing already. If you belong to, as she said, the SGA, or maybe off-campus activities, maybe you belong to your church youth group or other youth groups like Kappa Knights or the Rowers or even Girl or Boy Scouts. If you have ever planned any activities for those groups, or maybe you hold an office, that's all actually work experience. Do you go online? Are you clever? Do you get a lot of likes when you post? That's an actual job. That can be work experience. I know sometimes you see little funny tweets, maybe from Wendy's or Burger King or something like that, because they actually have a beef online. Well, there's somebody actually doing that that's getting paid. So look around to what you're doing. Do you babysit your siblings? Well, that's actual work experience. Once you know the building blocks you want to use and put it together, you want to make sure that you don't forget your education, any achievements that you might have made that you may want to highlight, and decide from how you want to present that information. There are many types of templates for resumes that are online and free to you. So all you have to do is what I call plug and play. For me, that's the best way, just to keep it simple, especially with your first resume. A first resume or an entry-level resume should never be more than 1 page, because you don't want to belabor the point. You want to show that you can be succinct and that you can highlight those things that are most important to what the recruiter is looking for. So one of the things you may want to do is get the actual job description. And as you line up what you want to put in your resume from your building blocks that you've assembled, and pick out those things that match the job description. That way, when the recruiter is going through, your experience stands out amongst the rest. Now, as you go forward, the most important thing is, number one, don't make a work of fiction. Make sure that what you put on your resume is truthful. Most experienced recruiters can see right through anything that's fabricated right away. Number two, make sure it's flawless. You can have some mistakes on like schoolwork and only get maybe points off for that. But when you have a resume, it needs to be flawless. It needs to have no spelling errors or grammatical errors. One of the things you can do once you have your draft is let a teacher look at it, or a parent, or a mentor, or maybe someone who is in the field already. Take a little scan at your resume and make sure that it is as flawless as you believe it to be. And we believe that when you put all of these things together, you will have a winning resume, one that gets seen by recruiters and hopefully selected for the interview. Thank you. Back to you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Karen, Jordan, and Melody for such an informative session. I especially also want to emphasize the importance of honesty and brevity when building your resume. You definitely want to make sure that you have certain keywords in there, keywords that more than likely are, associated with the position that you're applying for. But then also you do want to have your resume as brief as possible. These hiring managers, they don't have a lot of time. They typically have like a large stack of resumes and they go through them very fast. So they may not have time to go through pages and pages and pages of resume, within one resume. So making your resume as brief as possible, that's also, very important. I myself, I typically don't have a lot of time to read through a lot of pages. So I focus on those keywords, especially keywords that are associated with the position that's being applied for. But thank you again. So next up, we have Jake Berkowitz. He's an area director for Stratice. He's been involved in IT recruitment for 7 years, and he's here to share some of his knowledge on how to achieve a successful interview. So Jake, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Daryl. And good morning/afternoon to everyone that is on. Thank you again for asking us to participate in this event as well. It's a great thing, this Computer Science Week. So I'm going to be kind of talking and piggybacking on, now that you understand how to do a resume, ideally you're getting an interview. And the interview process, getting into an interview, that's the hardest part, in my opinion. You might be up against, 100, 150 other candidates, depending on the type of position. Sometimes you might be up against a lot fewer than that, but actually getting yourself scheduled and into an interview sometimes is the hardest part of the entire job requisition part. So feel good about yourself for even getting an interview request at this time, and allow yourself to be excited going into the interview. You did all the work. You got your resume in place. Your resume looked good. They're clearly interested in you. If they weren't interested in you, you definitely wouldn't be getting an interview. So feel proud about that and carry that pride into your interview, because the hiring managers will definitely pick up on kind of everything that you're putting out there. Your presence, your attitude, everything like that is going to convey to them just how good you're going to be for this position and part of their team. I'm going to be focusing a lot today on virtual interviews just because of the current times we're in. I would say for us, probably about 80% of our clients right now are all doing virtual interviews. However, a lot of these tools you can take over to in-person interviews as well. And that's kind of the biggest takeaway that I want you to have from this short little talk here, is to prepare and present yourself as if you're doing an in-person interview, even if it's a virtual interview. Don't think just because it's a virtual interview, you get a free pass that there's a lot of background noise, or that your video and audio quality isn't very good. You need to prepare yourself because they're going to be judging you just as if you're sitting right in front of you. So the first thing that I would suggest is prepare, prepare, prepare. So the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure that you kind of know your resume inside and out. And that should be pretty easy because everything you've put on your resume is stuff that you've done already. So there's no reason to be nervous. You don't need to cram and, make sure that you're remembering every line item on your resume as if it's written, as if it's that. But you just need to know kind of what you've done in the past. And you need to be able to, if they ask questions about previous experience, you need to be able to talk about that previous experience. So make sure you have a really good understanding of what you've put on the resume, which should be pretty easy, as everyone from SMS alluded to, because everything you put on there is 100% the truth. After that, I highly suggest doing your research on the company you're interviewing with. Sometimes that can be a little difficult. You might be interviewing for a national company, but the local branches do something different. So you really need to figure out what part of the company you're dealing with, and then do your research on that company, what industry they're in, how long they've been around. Along with that, you want to be doing your research on who you're interviewing with. Most of the time, you're going to find that out, whether it's an in-person interview, because you're supposed to, show up at the place, who you're meeting. If it's a virtual interview, a lot of the time you're going to get the email sent directly from the hiring manager. And the best place to go to do your research on who you're interviewing with is probably going to be LinkedIn. So go on to LinkedIn, find who the hiring manager is, find out different places that person might have worked, and see if there's any common trends between you and that hiring manager, so that you can kind of build a rapport with them. A lot of interviewing is obviously about the skills that you're bringing to the table, but it's also about how they see you fitting in with the team. So if you come to that interview prepared and show them that you're a good fit for the team, that you're the best possible hire for them, chances are you're going to have a really good shot at getting the job. I also suggest, under this kind of being prepared area, is come to the interview with some questions. One thing that we tell all of our consultants is do your research, but also come to them with questions ready, so that you can show that you're really taking this seriously, and that you're really interested in the position, that the position has different things that you're very interested in, but you might have some questions as well to make sure it's the right fit. This is a really good way to show the people that you're interviewing with that you're not necessarily 100% just going to jump at the first thing that's coming, that you really want to make sure that this is a great fit for you, just as it's going to be a great fit for the hiring manager, because this is kind of a mutual decision between you and the hiring manager, that yes, the hiring manager really likes you, they're going to go ahead and extend the offer, but you also need to make sure that this is a good position for you, so that you can go into this company, do the job really well, and be a good fit for them in the long run. Questions you might have might be about the company culture. Questions you might have would be about the team you're working with, or the manager that you're going to be working with. Other questions might be about how long this company's been around, or what the progression of this position is. Those are all sorts of questions that you can ask that are very appropriate in an interview. I would suggest the first question not being, well, how much are you going to pay me? That's usually a turnoff for a lot of hiring managers. And there's a time and a place for salary discussions. A lot of the time, salary discussions are going to take place after the interview. And a lot of people that I've seen in interviews, or people that I've interviewed talking about salary right away, usually tells them that they're more interested in just the money and not the position, their career, the company going forward. Going a little bit more now on doing strictly digital interviews, you definitely want to make sure that you find yourself in a quiet place. You don't want to be trying to do a video interview in your car. You don't want to try to be doing an interview, with other people around. You really want to make sure that you're setting yourself up for success in the interview. So finding a good quiet place, that also goes to making sure that you're preparing yourself, that you know where you're going to interview. You're not just like, okay, I'm interviewing on a Wednesday at 12 p.m. I'll figure it out at 11:30. I'm sure I can find a quiet area. Make sure that you have a plan in place for where you're going to be interviewing. Along with that plan for a digital interview, you want to make sure that you've done some tests on your video quality, your audio quality, everything like that. So I would actually set up with potentially a friend, or if you're working with a company like ours, with a recruiter, setting up a time with them to do kind of a mock interview. along with that mock interview, you're going to be testing out your internet capabilities, your bandwidth. We definitely suggest you having at least 1 megabyte per second for your bandwidth, so that you're really presenting as if you're there in person with them, and they're not having to wait for you to kind of figure out how to work with your audio, how to work with your video. So you definitely need to make sure that you have a computer or laptop set up. You can do it on a phone or a lap or a tablet, but we definitely highly suggest you doing it on a laptop. That laptop also needs to make sure that it has a microphone with it and speakers with it. Pretty much all new laptops are going to be equipped with that type of stuff, but some people are using older PCs that might not be equipped with that stuff. So make sure that you're set up, make sure that it's working, make sure that everyone can hear you properly. The background behind you, you want to make it as neutral as possible. You don't want to be sitting in front of a bunch of pictures or anything like that. You don't want to be taking any distractions away from you. Along with, kind of the area that you're surrounding with. If you are interviewing at home, make sure you're behind closed doors. Make sure you're maybe in a locked room, just in case there's no kids running in and out. Although everyone's a little bit more understanding during these times, you definitely just want to be presenting yourself in the best light right now. So making sure that the hiring managers know that you have, or that you're giving them your full attention. Along with that, you want to make sure that you're dressing very professionally. I've never heard of anybody going in for an interview that's been overdressed. You can definitely be underdressed, but I don't think you can ever be overdressed for a position. So that's really up to you on how you want to dress professionally. Along with that, you want to make sure that if you can kind of find out what the company culture is, that's also going to tell you what the dress code is. But coming in business professional, for most people, that's going to be either, a pantsuit, or for women, that's going to be a dress or a skirt. For men, that's going to be, a suit, maybe with a tie, maybe without, or just a sport coat. But never feel like you're going to be overdressed going in an interview. Being overdressed or more dressed than the hiring manager is just going to show them that you're taking this very seriously and that you're very interested in the position. Another thing that you want to do, especially while you're maybe doing a virtual interview, is your body language. You want to be making sure that you're looking at the computer, looking at the screen the entire time. Sorry about that. I've been a little under the weather and just getting on the mend right now. But you want to make sure that you're looking at the screen. You can use hand gestures when that's appropriate. Really feel like you're sitting across from them at a table. You want to make sure that you're sitting up straight, that you're not, leaning back in your chair. You want to be up close to the computer so that really they're looking just straight at you. If you do bring in your resume into an interview, that's never a bad thing. But make sure you're not constantly looking down at your resume, checking on things. That's kind of showing them, as well as not having very good eye contact, that's showing them that you're really having to look and kind of understand what you've done in the past. And that's usually not a good sign as well. And really kind of the last thing is, when you are getting ready for that interview that day of, make sure that you're arriving early. The same thing if it's virtual or in person. Show up 10 minutes early, show up 15 minutes early. You never can show up too crazy early. Obviously, don't show up an hour early for an interview, but 15, 20 minutes before an interview so you can sit, either in the digital lobby or in the in-person lobby. Things come up. There could be, your internet went out, or there was an accident on the highway and you're running late. Give yourself plenty of time. If you're trying to run out to an interview on a lunch break, you have an hour-long lunch break, the interview is only supposed to take 30 minutes, you're probably setting yourself up for some failure there. You're probably going into the interview very rushed. They're going to be able to pick up on that. You're giving yourself very little wiggle room for anything that might come up, like an accident or your internet going out. So make sure that you're there early and prepared. Even though my laptop right now is at 100%, we all know with technology, things can come up. So I have my laptop plugged in just to alleviate any potential issues that might be coming up. Kind of the final thing with the interview is it's always a good idea kind of at the end to explain your interest in the position. So making sure that that at the end you tell them, thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy. Yes, I'm very interested in the position and I'm very much looking forward to hearing from you. After that interview, it's a great idea to maybe send a follow-up email. If you're working with a recruitment agency, feel free to reach out to your recruiter, be like, hey, I would really like to thank the interviewer for their time. Feel free to send over or feel free to email your recruiter what you'd like to pass on. That's really just showing an appreciation for the hiring manager's time. It's showing that you're interested. It's showing that you're going the extra step in something that's not necessarily required. If you are dealing with a company directly, feel free to send that email as well. The one thing you want to be kind of careful about is some people can get really excited and not be very patient to hear the feedback from those hiring managers or from that company. And if you do have a direct communication line with that company, I would suggest maybe sending that follow-up email, that night if you want to, but then maybe waiting a week. If you don't hear from them in a week, sending a follow-up email to them is perfectly acceptable. Thanking them again for their time, just wondering on where they're at in their process and their decision-making so that you can know what next is to come. And then after that, you can probably leave it alone. Unfortunately, there's some companies out there that are not very good at letting candidates know that they did get the job or not get the job. Hopefully the companies you're interviewing with will always kind of keep you up to date, but doing kind of one follow-up email is kind of good practice. After that, you can do another follow-up maybe a week after that, but after that, probably pushing more and more probably isn't the best thing, probably just waiting to hear from them. Again, kind of in summary, feel really good about yourself for getting to the interview stage. The hardest part is getting the interview. Once you're in the interview, really let kind of your experience and your personality shine, get prepared, understand the job you're interviewing for, and then just present yourself as best as possible and do some follow-up afterwards. And you really should be very well prepared for your interview. And that's all I got. So I'll send that back to you, Daryl.
Thank you, Jake, for sharing some valuable tips on the interviewing process. Again, the importance of honesty and being able to talk to your resume is extremely, extremely important. Again, once you put something on your resume, it's fair game at that point, and it will likely be asked at some point during the interview process. But also, as Jake pointed out, you definitely want to be prepared to ask questions yourself. Some of the questions that I tend to lean towards is about the career path, because it shows the potential employer that you're there, for potentially the long run, and that you actually want to make a career out of this. So you definitely want to find out like what type of career path is in store for you should you get offered and accept this position. It's important also from my perspective to understand that employment or potential employment is not just a paycheck. It's also an opportunity to gain more experience, continue to build more skills to add to your resume. Because at some point in time, should you take this position, it's going to be part of your resume. So you want to ensure that you're building the skills, or you're getting the skill sets that you desire for your career. And then also be prepared to answer questions that may speak to how you fit within the company culture. I know some of the questions that I've seen are what are the accomplishments that you're most proud of? So be prepared to discuss things like that. Be potentially prepared to name a weakness of yours, or something that you can improve on. I know one of the weaknesses that I tend to dwell on for myself is I actually have I need to work on basically being able to, or delegating a task, because sometimes it's difficult to trust people to carry out or to accomplish something that you're ultimately responsible for. So those are some of the things that that I need to work on myself, because I tend sometimes you tend to take on more work to make sure it's done right, so to speak. But But this was definitely a good session. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the workshop and took some good notes. And maybe perhaps you feel a little bit better about the tools that you have to build your resume and prepare for your interviews. Again, I'd like to thank everyone in attendance and for participating in this workshop. And definitely a special thanks goes to Karen, Jordan, Melody, and Jake for lending us your time and expertise. But if there's nothing else, this will conclude our workshop for today. Thank you.